he was more impactful than Areece this year. Yeah, Maglera.
In terms of
Dog, everyone was saying that's the new kid on the block.
No, I'm saying he was more impactful than Areece this
for
year.
me, Maglera had a better year than Areece. It's just that Areece's fan base is so stubborn.
No, not in the game, because he's fresh, dog. People are gonna like too short. I swear.
No, you're talking about.
No, but we talk about impact.
Yeah,
even if you're fresh, even people love you now because you're new, but it's the impact.
But Areece still had a bigger impact, dog.
Then who?
What?
Then who?
From what?
Then Maglera, dog. Come on.
I know you breathe and drink hip hop, Mara. Let's be honest, dog.
Hip hop.
So you guys,
Areece doesn't deserve to be in the league.
You vote.
Fuck Areece.
Yo, what's going on, man? We're back with another video. Now let's talk about the recent video that has been trending, man. This clip has been trending now across the internet for, I think, for 2 days, 3 days now. Obviously, this is the Ria and Black Stuff podcast. I believe this episode was the wrap-up for last year's most impactful or most important artist. You know, this was a clip that was taken from an old episode, right? But it has been making rounds recently, and I just wanted to talk about it because I see there's a lot of mixed, reactions to it. And I think I can probably provide some of my own thoughts, Let's talk Maglera Doe Boy and Areece 2022. Now, these two artists is probably my favorite artist, or part of my top 10, if not top 5 favorite artists that dropped last year. Both of them have dropped 2 projects, I believe. And both artists were involved in songs that I believe could be considered as part of the big songs that came out last year, right? Areece was part of the song Sneaky by Blackie, which is considered to be R&B, which begs to differ and makes me take a slight detour. Should the song by Blackie be considered, right, a hip-hop song? Because I do know Sete and Lemons to Lemonade is not considered hip-hop. So it begs the question, should we consider that song as a hip-hop song that was big last year that Areece was involved with? I don't know. I just wanted to put that out there, right? However, Areece was a part of that song, which is called Sneaky by Blackie, which is currently, I believe, on Spotify is on 1 million+ streams and is heading to 1 million views on YouTube, I believe. And Maglera Doe Boy was involved with Never Ride, obviously. Had one of the best verses to come out of last year, up until, obviously, Nasty C and AKA dropped Lemons to Lemonade, which I personally believe Maglera Doe Boy still has one of the best verses to come out of last year. And Lemons to Lemonade verse by Nasty C was cool, but it's not a verse that can, dethrone what Maglera Doe Boy did. But that's just me, my personal preference, So let's get into this, man. I saw a couple of tweets from a couple of people on Twitter. A lot of users on Twitter seem to be thinking that, how can we compare Maglera Doe Boy to Areece when Areece has been doing this thing for the longest of time, and Areece has dropped more music than Maglera Doe Boy, And that is a fair question to ask, but it's not the proper context, I mean, at this point, we are talking about what the guys did between 2021 and 2023, which was 2022, right? So I don't understand why people are negating that fact, right? But in a broader context of their career, I don't think they can be compared to each other because obviously Areece has had a more successful career over a long span of time than Maglera Doe Boy. So that I will give a lot of people that we cannot compare the two, because of that reason. However, this is rap. Rap is a competitive sport, and we are talking about impact for 2022. So for this duration, for this amount of time, we are talking about what these guys have done for this amount of time, right? In 2022, both of them, as I said before, dropped 2 projects. I think those projects were highly successful in their own right. For what Areece has been able to do by himself without a record label, I think it's been a very good year for Areece, a very good career, even. And for Maglera Doe Boy, who's recently just popped up into the mainstream, I think for what the album Diaspora did and what Champion Music 2 did, I believe, was good for his career, However, if we were talking about the sport of hip-hop, what it did for hip-hop, I think they are pretty much neck and neck, right? Now, let's talk about their impact. Areece is a very impactful artist regardless, right? I'm not saying this simply to negate the fact that Maglera Doe Boy has had a very, very good year. However, A-reece is an artist that consistently, is at the tip of people's tongues. Like, people consistently talk about A-reece, whether he drops music or not, whether he signs deals or not, whether he's on Spotify's Billboard or not, that's irrelevant. But the point is, ever since A-reece came out of the game, or came in the game rather, he has been an artist that's been very, very consistent with the amount of work that eventually led him to building an audience that's very consistent with the way they support the boy, right? And then with Maglera Doe Boy, I think his recent rise, to fame and what his music has been doing, has been so refreshing for the game. It has allowed the game to have another facet, that hasn't really been experienced like that, because Maglera Doe Boy is very diverse. It's hard to box Maglera Doe Boy. So when he came along, it sort of brought this refreshing sound, this refreshing energy, gangster, but at the same time very intelligent, swaggy, but at the same time very thoughtful about the messages he puts in his song. He's not just a rapper that preaches kill, 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 but he's saying, look, there is a past that I come from where I was, at some point in time, was dope dealing, and that time we're not really, really poor, but the community as a whole was, in shambles. However, where I come from, my personal home, we were not poor to a point where I had to sell drugs. However, I was just doing that, to be, swagged up because of where I was going to school. I was seeing the rich kids and everything, So I do think that him experiencing a certain life outside of the hood made him learn about the ins and outs of the hood and the burbs, and everything that's proper in life and everything that's wrong in life, which he, I believe, has used whatever he gained, in his past life to look, say, as much as we are in the hood and we are experiencing this type of lifestyle, there is a better narrative out there that we can strive for. We just need to unite as the people, and also the government needs to, help the people. He seems to be preaching this constant message in his music that, look, people with real life problems exist in Makazana, in Maglera, So I do think that he's, a very refreshing artist in that way, because he brings it in such a swag filled way that it might fly over your head if you really don't listen to what Maglera Doe Boy is saying. Maglera Doe Boy is a guy that came in with a fresh sound, fresh perspective, with a very clean swag, but a very thoughtful person as well, So I think for me, if people look at that and the dynamic between the two artists, it's very, very difficult to actually say that they are the same. And obviously, a lot of people are saying they are not the same. I do get that. But at the same time, in the context of hip-hop, we do have to compare them, right? Now, how do we compare them? We compare them by their work. Both of them dropped 2 projects. I'm saying this for the 3rd time. Both of them were involved in a couple of hit songs, and both of them have been very active, in terms of working with other people. And I will say that for me personally, I do think Maglera Doe Boy has had a more impactful year, right? I think a lot of people started saying my bar a lot because of Maglera Doe Boy. A lot of people were saying Makazana. I mean, the visual aesthetic of Maglera Doe Boy is different. Whereas if we were looking at A-reece, a lot of people were complaining about his visuals. A lot of people were saying, nah, his music does not hit the same. I mean, obviously people will say that because he's been in the game for a while, and that's just happened when you've been doing this for as long as A-reece has been doing this, But for me personally, I think Maglera Doe Boy, for a guy that's came in the game where people were like, yo, SA hip-hop is dead, I think he's had a very positive impact in the SA hip-hop space. I think Maglera Doe Boy has managed to find a way to blend the good and the bad of Kasi and the Burbs and made it into a style that's very fly and a lot of people can relate to, So I think Maglera Doe Boy, even with the numbers and what he did with what he did with Mash Beats, I think that was amazing as well. Like, Mash Beats is a producer that's popularly known in SA hip-hop, but not as a South African hip-hop or a South African producer. He's not popularly known like that. His brand is not that big. But with that verse, Maglera Doe Boy was able to make that song get to 1.7 million streams. Obviously, it's not Maglera Doe Boy alone. Tato Soul did that as well. Mesh Beats, as I've said before, he did that with a great production. He was able to put together. So I do think that in that context, these guys have both been active. And also Maglera Doe Boy, ever since he came out, he's been active as a rapper as well with the pen. He's been nice when he's featured on a Pretty Ugly EP on the Neighborhood. He's been nice when he was featured on by Obedese, by Mesh Beats and Tato Soul. He's been nice on the song Okay. He's been nice on Never Ride. Maglera has been pretty active as a rapper. A-reece as well. He's been very active. Godlike is one of the best verses that came out last year. Friday the 13th, I still think is one of the most important songs to come out last year. However, I do think that A-reece, has been more impactful because of what he's been doing recently, not on a broader scale for as a hip hop, what he's been doing recently for his own career, right? What he has done with the Reece effect thing at altitude, apparently a lot of people have never seen that place packed up until Reece came along. And then obviously A-reece was also in a campaign with Spotify and Platoon where they basically promoted him on a, Barcelona game, which is big, that is highly, that's big, But if you are talking generally and what these guys were able to do for, 2022, Maglera Doe Boy definitely takes it for me, man. And I do think these guys are highly talented, highly skilled rappers, and very, very well-articulated human beings. And both come from impoverished backgrounds, but also, were driven enough and were very adamant about making a name for themselves in this rap game. And I do think both of these guys have more to offer, man. Maglera Doe Boy is currently one of my favorites. I'm hoping that he finally drops this project that he's working on. I think he's working on 2 projects this year. So hopefully we get something from him. And obviously Reece, hopefully we get Paradise 2. He's been hinting that he's going to be dropping that. But you guys tell me what you think, man. I do think personally Maglera Doe Boy had more of an impact in 2022 than A-reece. You guys tell me what you think. Leave your thoughts in the comment section. I'm going again. Peace.